We'll just cut straight across to the BJP press conference being addressed by Sambit
like
Patra.
Mr. Vijay Mallya could procure loans worth 9,000 crore without proper paperwork, without a proper account, and how could he dupe a consortium of bank and the government of India was a question which had been looming large. And the oft asked question was, were there certain hidden hands who were pulling the string to see to it that loans were granted to Vijay Mallya's sinking airline? We had heard of sinking ship, but here we have a sinking airline. There had been speculations ripe across the political circle and the people of this country that is it that the party which became the sinking ship tried to bail out the sinking airline? Was the sinking ship helping the sinking airline? Was a question which had been oft asked. And I think gradually we are moving towards the answer. Two leading news channels, I would say about 2 days ago, CNN Network 18 broke a story which flashed certain, in fact, letters. And today, while we were proceeding towards this press conference, we saw that even Times Now, one of the leading English news channels, was flashing certain documents. So naturally, certain questions have been brought in over here. Detail by detail, we would go through the pursuit. Number one, before I move to the details, let's have a backdrop of what happened in Vijay Mallya case, a small timeline. The first loan to Vijay Mallya's company was granted in September 2004. 7th February 2008, the second loan to Vijay Mallya's company was granted. 30th April 2009, his company became a NPA, a non-performing asset. Despite that, on 21st December 2010, restructuring of the loan was done. Despite it being declared a NPA, restructuring of the loan was done on 21st December 2010. Let me remind you, my friends, that even the Supreme Court of India had asked as to why the banks continued to lend money if they had managed to recover only 1/10 of what they had lent. Even the Supreme Court was quite critical as to why the banks were lending money to Vijay Mallya's company despite the fact that they could only recover 1/10 of what they had granted. So the big question was, who were the driving force behind the banks granting this loan to Vijay Mallya? The astonishing fact is, even while there was a negative financial net worth and very poor rating of the company, and despite the fact that the accounts were not in order, why was Mallya given a loan? This is the backdrop on which certain facts would be kept and placed in front of you today. We have certain emails, certain correspondences, and certain letters which would in fact expose in front of the people of the country and the media of this country the hands which were pulling the string. Not the hand that Rahul Gandhi saw in gods, but the hand that was corrupt. So the corrupt hand story begins now. We have a letter number 1. This letter was written by Vijay Mallya to the then Prime Minister Shri Manmohan Singh ji. Date of the letter is October 4th, 2011. A copy of the letter was sent to Advisor of the Prime Minister Shri Manmohan Singh, that is Mr. T.K.A. Nair, who is a reputed bureaucrat of that time, Principal Secretary to Prime Minister Mr. Pulak Chatterjee, and you all know Pulak Chatterjee of Sanjay Baru's fame. Sanjay Baru wrote a letter, wrote a book, The Accidental Prime Minister, in which Pulak Chatterjee had a special mention that every day evening Mr. Chatterjee had to run with all the files to 10 Janpath, even before the Prime Minister could go through it. That means there is a connect within the Congress party also, a larger story would emerge. So this letter, which I show here to you, this letter by Vijay Mallya to Manmohan Singh ji said urgent, and we have October 4, 2011 as the date. The Honorable Prime Minister, Government of India, New Delhi, respected Prime Minister. Certain lines need to be mentioned out of this letter. I quote, Mallya says, I had also informed your good self that we had approached our consortium of banks led by the State Bank of India to grant us additional financial support urgently by way of increase in working capital and short-term loan. We as promoters have pumped in 550 crores into the airline this year itself. I was very relieved, Mr. Mallya continues saying, I was very relieved and pleased when you responded positively and expressed support for Kingfisher Airlines, which is the single largest airline in our country, operating 380 flights daily to 60 destinations. So Mr. Mallya was extremely relieved and he was very pleased when Mr. Manmohan Singh, the then Prime Minister, responded extremely positively and expressed support for Mallya. Support was there. Because of this support, Mr. Mallya was relieved and pleased. And then Mr. Mallya continues to say to Mr. Manmohan Singh, you had asked me to follow up with Mr. T.K.A. Nair, which I did, and I am deeply appreciative of the fact that Mr. Nair immediately spoke to the concerned people in the ministries involved. So Mr. Mallya met Mr. Prime Minister, he apprised that he needed certain help. Mr. Prime Minister guaranteed him of help. Mr. Prime Minister told him to meet his top bureaucrat, Mr. T.K.A. Nair. Mr. Mallya speaks to Mr. T.K.A. Nair, goes and meets Mr. T.K.A. Nair, and Mr. T.K.A. Nair, the principal advisor to the then Prime Minister of the country, Mr. Manmohan Singh, talks to all other concerned ministries to see to it that Mr. Vijay Mallya is helped. And then Mr. Vijay Mallya says, I am once again appealing you for your kind and urgent intervention. Once again. So once he had appealed, he was pleased and he was relieved because the Prime Minister had helped him then. Once again we are in trouble and once again I am appealing you for your kind and urgent intervention. I would be most grateful for your immediate intervention and relief as requested. These are the contents of the letter, and here we have the sign of Mr. Mallya. This is the letter to the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Manmohan Singh. So, this is the first set of letter which has been written to the Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh. Now, there are certain things which we should continue in the timeline. When was this letter written? This letter was written on October 4th, 2011. Now what happens on 14th November 2011? On 14th November 2011, if you would follow the timeline, Mr. Prime Minister then, Mr. Manmohan Singh, while interacting with the reporters and media, said, and I quote, we have to find ways to get Kingfisher out of trouble. We have to find ways to get Kingfisher out of trouble. These are the exact words of the then Prime Minister, which I place within quotes. And why was Mr. Manmohan Singh interacting then with the press? He was interacting with the press on the backdrop of the then Aviation Minister, Mr. Vailar Ravi's effort to organize a bailout package to the airline. If you would remember, a bailout package was being worked out for Mr. Mallya, and in this context, after this letter, Mr. Manmohan Singh says that we have to see to it that we in fact bail out Kingfisher. And then you would remember as to how a bailout package was given, and you would also remember, and I'm extremely sorry to state, that though the Income Tax Department had frozen the account of Mr. Mallya, because of the insistence of the then Prime Minister, the Income Tax Department was soft on Mr. Mallya, the accounts were unfrozen, and in fact the process of bailout began. Then we have a second letter. This second letter is by Mr. Manmohan Singh, is to Mr. Manmohan Singh ji, the then Prime Minister of the country, dated November 22nd, 2011. And I have the letter with you. This is written by Mr. Vijay Mallya to the then Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, date being 22nd November 2011. What does he say? I quote, you were kind enough to state that connectivity in our country was of paramount importance and the government would assist us as requested. I'm also grateful to your positive statement of support for Kingfisher Airlines that you made during your return from Maldives. The statement I read out as to how Kingfisher has to be bailed out. So Mr. Vijay Mallya is thanking the Prime Minister. I approached you and then you helped me out by speaking in favor of Kingfisher. I am seeking your kind indulgence once again. So again and again, the kind indulgence of the then Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, was sought. Then he writes, and I quote, "We have now reached a stage where the release of requested funds is highly time critical. Some funds have to be released by the banks and these are extremely time critical and needs to happen in the next 2 days to avoid our loans from banks becoming classified as non-performing assets or NPA, and for the airline to continue operating 300 daily flights as per its temporary schedule. Reduced."
Okay, so those were those shocking revelations being made by the BJP spokesperson Sambit Patra speaking to the address. He was releasing a few letters that have been exchanged between the former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh through his principal advisor TK Nair and Vijay Mallya. He was talking about the contents of that letter, exposing those letters. In fact, he also talked about the various loans that were granted to Vijay Mallya, who has already been declared an absconder by the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. We're going to come back to that press conference in just a bit. We're going to listen to those startling disclosures being made, those revelations by Sambit Patra in just a bit. A quick break right here. Stay tuned.
At India Today, we need to, we haven't seen those letters and we need to independently verify the authenticity of those letters. But 3 letters are being shown by Sambit Patra, the spokesperson of Bharatiya Janata Party, from the dais of Bharatiya Janata Party, and showing those letters. They said that basically their correspondence between Manmohan Singh, the then Chief of the Prime Minister, and Vijay Mallya, where in one such letter he has even claimed that how the Prime Minister helped him by putting on ward to TK Nair, a very key bureaucrat at that point of time in the PMO, and how he asked the concerned ministries to grant loans to Vijay Mallya in spite of not repaying those loans, which is basically in technical terms NPA or non-performing assets. So very clearly going out of the way, bending the rules for Vijay Mallya. The then UPA government, particularly the UPA 2 government, has gone out of its way to help Vijay Mallya. Something that Congress has been critical of as far as Mallya is concerned, because he left the country without anybody's notice, in spite of having an ED on keeping a close eye on Vijay Mallya, and now they're absolutely turned the table and just ahead. The timing is very crucial, Avantika, just before the budget session begins in a day or two, and they have put forth these allegations. And remind you, just an hour and a half from now, Congress is holding another crucial press conference by Manmohan Singh himself, along with P. Chidambaram. They're going to discuss the state of the economy of the country. So very interesting timing, very interesting content of the letters. And it only remains to be seen how the Congress defends and how the former Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, who always enjoyed the image of a clean man, responds to those very strong allegations.
You know, you seem to have read my mind, Anindo, because even I was just thinking about the timing of these kind of disclosures, these revelations, just ahead of the union budget, just ahead of that all-important meet that Sumitra Mahajan has called to ensure that there's no disruptions. But this kind of information, we can obviously expect a lot of confrontation between the opposition, the Congress and the government.
Oh, absolutely. And what we're told by sources within the Bharatiya Janata Party, that they have realized, they tried to, persuade the Congress Party, realizing that they want to get certain bills passed. But particularly their experience in the last 2 sessions, particularly the last session, they have realized that that is not going to happen. A friendly match is not going to happen. And that's why, since a confrontation is the name of the game, they want to play it that way. That's what sources are telling from within the Bharatiya Janata Party. And that's why the timing is so crucial, because
yes,
they're saying that if you want confrontation, so be it, we want it that way as well. So the unfortunate part is probably democracy and probably administration is something that can be a catch-22 that we don't want.
All right, Anindo, very interesting bit of news coming in there. For now, I'll have to thank you, but I'll come back after this short break on this story. We'll get lots more reactions. Stay with us. India Today will be back in just a bit.